To truly understand the story of Napster, one has to ask themselves a question. What is the price of music? In the mid-20th century, the primary way to listen to recorded music was through vinyl records, a round disc with tiny grooves in it that was read by a needle which converts said grooves into an audio signal. The vinyl record was great, it sounded fantastic, gave you a cool piece of art to display in your room to impress girls, but more importantly, it was cheap to mass produce. This opened the door for the rising dominance of record labels. The format was simple. Record label finds an emerging band, signs them into a contract stating that they have to produce a certain number of albums. The band records said albums, hands them off to the label, who handles the production and distribution of the vinyl record, giving themselves a hefty sum of the revenue and maybe even sometimes a fraction to the artist. Everybody wins. Fast forward a few years, cassettes become more mainstream. They're a nifty little portable cue boy that let you take your music on the go, in the car, walking in the street, soundtracking your life as a Sigma male. The cassette was fine, it did what it needed to do, and it did help propel music consumption into a more consumer-friendly domain. But then it got absolutely stomped out by the compact disc. The CD brought the record industry into its golden era. They were extremely cheap to produce. This meant they could be mass-produced by labels, and in a post-MTV world where more and more people are becoming music fans, this mass production could satisfy a growing demand. In this era, it was more and more common that listeners would be exposed to singles more than they would the album that they came on. This was a result of the now well-established presence of MTV and other music television programs, which put emphasis on having a gripping music video to go along with the lead singles on an album. Because of this, if you liked the song you heard on the radio or MTV, you'd go to the record store, buy the CD for $10, and then you'd own that song. This also meant that there was an industry shift from emphasis on albums themselves and more of a priority to hit singles and one-hit wonders, resulting in some album releases that were 90% filler and 10% music that people actually wanted to listen to. And Jesus Christ did the labels love this. They were making record profits. Album sales were through the roof, with most albums hitting 8 to 9 million copies right out of the gate. Everyone was rolling around in money and thinking, nothing could ever stop us now. But what's the catch? CDs were drives that carry digital audio files mostly in the format of MP3s. Sure, MP3s sacrificed some of the audio quality, but in return took up a fraction of the space on the disc, meaning they were incredibly easy to transfer and store. What resulted was that people would be able to strip MP3s off of CD discs using their computers and reversibly burn their own CDs with whatever songs they want. The outcome of this was that the purchasing of CDs allowed listeners to store a range of music on their computer hard drives, and this is where Shawn Parker and Shawn Fanning saw their way in. Shawn Parker and Shawn Fanning, the two guys behind Napster, both were passionate about computers and software development. The two met via the internet in their teen years and shared interest in hacking and computer science.
Surfing the World Wide Web?
Surfing? That sounds pretty cool already.
Fun story, when Parker was 16, he was busted by the FBI after hacking a Fortune 500 company. He got busted because his dad took his computer away before he could log out, allowing the FBI to track his IP address. Fanning handled most of the development stages of the service, whilst Parker handled the more business and PR side. Napster went live on June 1st, 1999, and within a few weeks had amassed users in the millions. For most people, it was a no-brainer. Why would you go to the store and pick up a $10 to $15 album, half of which you probably don't even want to listen to, when you can download individual songs from any artist in a fraction of the time, and not to mention, for absolutely free? With millions of people signing up to Napster every month, it didn't take long for the big wigs in the record industry to notice that chunks of their revenue had gone missing. Basically, they freaked out. For these record label execs, it would have felt like the end of the world, and honestly, I sorta don't blame them for having the knee-jerk reaction of trying to shut it all down as quickly as possible, but at the same time, it was gonna happen eventually. The two Shawns were just the first to get there. What should have happened was a mutual negotiation between the Shawns from Napster and the record label executives discussing how this technology could be used for the benefit of everyone, but in reality, this was far from the truth. The big label owners and executives of the industry under the RIAA quickly banded together on how they could stomp out Napster as quickly as possible. Now, the stories sort of differ on how much the Napster boys were actually willing to negotiate with the labels. In this MTV interview, the two are seen describing a future that they saw for the industry, and honestly, it's kind of funny how spot on they are.
All the stuff for free, that there will come a day where in the future when people will be willing to pay for it, there's going to be a way for the record companies to get in on the game.
People are willing to pay for it now. users are willing to pay for convenience, and they're willing to pay to have music piped into their home, to their stereo. You hear talk of the celestial jukebox, or a big archive of all the music in the world, and you can listen to whatever you want, as whenever you want.
And people are going to pay for
and
that.
People are going to pay for that.
On the other hand, then RIAA executive Hillary Rosen recounts a different side of the story.
We immediately contacted them and said, really cool system, but you're infringing on copyright. Well, if you send us a list of all of your songs, we'll make sure that none of them are on there. I said, all right, just start with the Billboard Top 200 songs. Take those off. They said, okay, fine, we'll try that. Well, they didn't. And it just grew and grew and grew.
Basically, the executives were kind of having none of it. In addition, multiple big names in the music industry got involved too, namely Dr. Dre and perhaps more infamously Metallica's drummer Lars Ulrich. And they were quick to kick off a lawsuit. But there was a problem. You see, Napster didn't actually store any of the music on their website, and from a lawsuit point of view, this was the real kicker. Users would allow Napster to access a portion of their computer hard drive, pulling the data from their drive instead of Napster having to host it on their own servers. This is what's known as a peer-to-peer network. It laid the foundation for other websites later down the track, such as Pirate Bay and BitTorrent. What this meant was that from a legal point of view, Napster didn't actually own or steal any music. They were merely facilitating the transfer of it.
Don't come up with this stuff. I just forward it along. You wouldn't arrest a guy who's just delivering drugs from one guy to another.
This gave Napster a real leg to stand on in the courtroom, as the lawsuit had to be adjusted to an argument about the distribution aspect of the site, not so much the piracy.
Holy crap! Do you know who you are? You're freaking Lars Ulrich from Metallica!
You know what? Maybe I wouldn't have to whore myself out if you kids didn't steal my music.
Whoa. We're not stealing, okay? We're just sharing with each other,
So it's like if I take this soda can right here, take a sip out of it.
Oh my God! I'm sharing my soda with Lars Ulrich!
And you know what? I'm just sharing 10 years of groupies with you, frat boy.
What an odd thing to say.
I'm starting to like this whole sharing thing. Napster. Sharing's only fun when it's not your stuff.
Sean Fanning. Nice shirt. Nice shirt.
You like it? You like it? Yeah. Actually, a friend of mine shared it with me. I'm thinking about getting my own, though.
All right. I think we need to get on with this introduction as quickly as possible.
The sooner I can get off the stage, the better.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's tough to say Lars didn't at least make a decent point in his argument against Napster. I mean, he was right in the way that he predicted sites like Napster would take money and control from the artist, but what he conveniently left out was that so do record labels. In this debate he had with Public Enemy's Chuck D, Chuck explains how he thinks that the introduction of music into the digital space can only lead to more freedom for the people and for the artist.
I think the degree of artistry over the last 50 to 60 years has proven that the music business has been one in control of the artist's destiny, throwing them in, throwing them out. And right now, this war goes beyond their heads. This is like the power goes back to the people.
And honestly, he's right. Up until this point, the labels were solely in control of which artist gets a chance to make it. They handpick the next up-and-coming stars. With software like Napster, individual artists have a platform to share their music with the masses, allowing them to be discovered and create fan bases without the help of a big label. And really, this dramatic shift can still be seen today. Think about how a service like SoundCloud, YouTube or TikTok allowed many artists to blow up over the last decade without any money or coverage from major labels. I honestly think we have Napster to thank for this. The lawsuit led Lars into somewhat of a culture war with Napster, culminating in him personally delivering 300,000 usernames of people who downloaded Metallica's music from Napster, resulting in those accounts getting banned. This created a rift between Metallica and their fans, as most of them were college age, and being that their average dinner probably looked like this, telling them that they have to start paying for music again probably wasn't his best idea. Lars became the face of the industry's war against piracy, which of course meant that he became a prime target for angry music fans who were simply just trying to enjoy free music.
Who do you think you are? I mean, just, because you, made us rich, you think you can get free stuff? Songs that we spent upwards of, 24 to 48 hours writing and recording?
Look, there's Lars now, sitting by his pool. This month he was hoping to have a gold-plated Shark Tank bar installed right next to the pool, but thanks to people downloading his music for free, he must now wait a few months before he can afford it.
It didn't help that a lot of other artists spoke out in favour of music piracy, such as the aforementioned Chuck D, Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit, and Dave Grohl, which caused music fans to further conclude that if other artists could support this new revolution, Lars must simply be greedy.
But you know what? When it's someone that sold 50 million records and they got 50 million fucking dollars and they're bitching about pennies, fuck you, man.
Napster had a number of lawsuits filed against them, but in the pivotal A&M Records Incorporated vs. Napster Inc., the court ruled that Napster would have to track their users' activities on their network and restrict all user access to copyrighted material. This meant that Napster could not facilitate the transferring of any music that wasn't classical music or the national anthem, both of which have no copyright. As such, Napster failed to comply and closed down their service in July of 2001. It was a combination of multiple factors: the piracy, the sheer scale of the amount of music being traded, as well as the likely fact that this was the first lawsuit of its kind and thus there was no precedent for such technology. Following the closing of Napster, the war had only just begun. Plenty of Napster clone websites came up after it, including LimeWire and Gnutella. The RIAA was essentially playing a game of whack-a-mole. As soon as one site went down, listeners had already moved on to the next. The floodgates for digital music were well and truly open. The industry was in turmoil, they had no idea what to do. But then somewhere in Silicon Valley, some dude who at the time you probably hadn't heard of comes up with a genius idea. Who is this guy, you ask? Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs really was the one to solidify music's transition into the digital age. He introduced the iTunes Store, where songs could be purchased for 99 cents onto your computer. This was the only real way forward, although it didn't really fix any of the industry's problems. The fact that single songs could be purchased still tanked album sales, resulting in further decrease in revenue after iTunes began replacing CDs. Additionally, piracy was still very much a problem. Most consumers did opt to just use iTunes as it was quicker, easier, and less likely to destroy your computer than piracy was, but some were still holding on to that sweet taste of free music. The industry was changed forever, and this change ended up affecting the television and movie industry as well. These traditional entertainment enterprises struggled to accept the new reality of the digital revolution. But I really believe that Napster liberated music as a whole. It facilitated the discovery of new music from around the world. It laid the foundation for all music services that came after it. And most importantly, it knocked off the traditional gatekeepers of the industry, which in turn allowed every bedroom musician, garage punk band, or YouTube cover artist to facilitate their own career without the need to bow down to the music overlords. Now they just have to bow down to our new tech overlords instead. Make sure to upload 4 TikToks a day or else the algorithm will deem you untalented. Also, don't be ugly. Now this story does continue. The record industry is still fighting this battle up until this very day, but maybe I'll save all that for another video. Thank you so much for watching. I plan on making more videos of this nature, so if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe and like. And yeah, that's it. Okay, thanks, bye.